this stuff to do this morning. Thank you, ladies, for the music. Readers this morning were Roger and Judy Jones.
They were also
And the coffee and treats, none other than the Lyerleys.
Good work, Don.
Yeah, I'm gonna second that. It's good stuff. We have any visitors this morning?
Joe.
Question?
Joe Country, granddaughter, Laura. Hello.
Raise your hand, granddaughter.
This is our granddaughter Laura from Colorado and UT Law School.
In the back row.
Larry.
Jack,
Get in
John
here.
Julie.
Okay.
I missed, someone sitting here by, darn, sure.
I'm thinking Jack would sit in
It's nice to meet him.
Yeah, she's got something for us this morning.
I think that's it.
All right. Well, joys and concerns, I think most of you probably know about John passing this last week. Ruthie, you want to fill us in on what you know?
Thank you.
I visited Lori Shrepnick, and she's in the hospital, and some of you may know, she fell, and the story she was telling me, you just won't believe. On Monday night, it was the lights were out. She was going from the bathroom to her bedroom, and this medicine she's taking is a steroid for her bursitis, and it makes her dizzy. And she got dizzy and she fell. She hit her head and her nose, and she lay there for 3 days before somebody found her. I could not believe it. Her ex-husband has a key to her house, and he had been calling her, and she didn't answer the phone. And so he went to check on her and found her, and she said it was just unbelievable what she went through. And she was trying to drag herself across the floor to get to her phone, and she rubbed skin off of all her hip and her leg, and that's what she's being treated for now. And she didn't break anything. She's just really sore, and she just didn't have the strength to get herself up off the floor. So. Let's see, Monday, I think she said Monday she was going to be going to the Wesleyan at Scenic for rehabilitation and get her, well, just to get her strength, some strength back. And she said it was fine for me to discuss this with y'all, but I wanted to say, I know a lot of you live with someone, and that's great, but those that live alone, if you don't see somebody or talk to somebody every single day, you must start to have some kind of a routine where you contact somebody. Don't rely on them to contact you. You have to do it yourself. Because I know every morning, my sister-in-law in Houston, we contact each other by text. It just chit-chat. And then I have my phone set for 9 in the morning and 9 at night to go off to remind me to text my kids that live in Austin to tell them I'm still kicking. So that at least, I won't lay there for 3 days without somebody finding me. So it's just, for your sake and the sake of your loved ones or your neighbors, please do that for yourself. And also, I visited with Jen, and she's in Scott and White Brown Rock Hospital. And she had knee surgery on Wednesday, I think. And she had a stroke. She said it was a mild stroke on Friday. And she said just the television became real blurred to her, and she couldn't make out. So she was in a good place to be checked out. And so she did have a mild stroke, and she's just taking it one day at a time. She didn't know what the next day will bring, what's going to happen. So they're getting her up in the bed, and she's walking just a little. And so anyway, I want to y'all ought to keep both of these ladies in your prayers and your thoughts. And one other thing, when she was telling Lori was telling me her story, it just broke my heart to know what she went through for those 3 days. So please take care of yourself and let others know how you're doing. Thank you. did have a medical alert bracelet, but she wasn't wearing it.
Anybody else? Joyce? Joe?
Yes, I'd like y'all to keep my sister Rebecca in prayer. She's still having pain from her knee surgery, and she shouldn't be. She should be recovered by now. And so they're wondering if she has an infection in her knee or something.
Joyce?
Okay, I just want you to know the response for John's reception was very good. I've got plenty of cookies, and I've got 2 ladies that volunteered to help clean up. We could maybe use some more for that if you're here. And Sandra and Dixie are going to take charge. So thank you all. You came through again.
That's something else. This is an unusual class in many regards. Okay, we have one birthday. Oh,
Does anybody know how George is doing?
where's Joe?
Joe Walker has.
George Jackson.
I spoke with George on Thursday, and he's doing quite well. He's left the Estrella rehab on Williams Drive, and he's home. But he has plenty of help visiting angels and his family. He's coming to the Christmas party, and his major concern when I talked to him was he needed a ride, so I've passed that on to Jim, and he'll get a ride to the party. So you'll see him there.
Good, thank you. Okay, we have one birthday today, Judy Joe.
Whose birthday?
And we don't have any anniversaries this week, but we do have next week. Okay, we have to take care of some business. Pam, you wanted to start out?
Good morning. My name is Pam McLean, and my husband Terry and I are new to Georgetown, and we've been visiting this church for a few months now. We just love it. We have a 1-year-old granddaughter who's just absolutely adorable, and she visits the Learning Tree 2 days a week, and we just have fallen in love with this church and with the town of Georgetown and our community. So Julie asked me to shamelessly promote Santa with breakfast. So that's what I'm here to do this morning. This is a tradition that I understand that this church has offered as an outreach to the community for many years. I visited a class earlier, and one lady told me that she has, her oldest child is 16, and so she has 16 years of photos with Santa here at the church. So this is a wonderful opportunity if you have, if you know of anybody that would like to come to this. I will leave some little flyers wherever it is that y'all pick up things. But also, it's just a wonderful opportunity to invite people to this church. We visited Georgetown many times before we chose to make this our home. And like many people, we just flew up and down 29 and said, oh, that's a pretty church. Oh, that's nice, that's nice. And so I think there are a lot of people like us who pass the church and thinks, what a lovely building. I wonder what goes on here. So this is a great opportunity to introduce people. And as I heard you speak about some of your members of the class, as someone who believes in the power of connecting young people and older people, this is a great opportunity to bring somebody just for that Christmas cheer. It's $5 for a ticket. You get lots of pancakes. There'll be lots of children that will energize the room. So if you know of anyone that you don't have to be a kid, just bring them and share a little joy with them. So thank you for allowing me to be here this morning. I know you've got a lot to do. I appreciate the time to interrupt and to promote this. So thank you so much. Thank
Okay, Joe, you're on.
I'm on. Well, here's the day the pitch is on. I gotta get a mic here. Refreshment list is bare, we need some help. You know, Ken, last Sunday, taught a wonderful lesson, and he taught about the Reformation, and one of the things, you know, in the Reformation, they had these little verses, they were trying to get people to buy indulgences, you know, to get it, the monks had these little verses, and they came up with one, I told you last Sunday, as soon as the coin in the coffer rings, your soul from purgatory springs, you know, you could buy an indulgence. Well, I thought that may work. So I've written a little verse for you all for refreshments. As soon as your signature appears, you will lose your worry and your fears, for you will be included in the heaven-bound bus with the words of assurance, in God we trust. On the list.
Oh, boy. That's good. I don't know about that. Jim? It's going to be a hard act to follow.
No use trying to top the bishop, I'll say that. On behalf of the social committee, just want to remind you of our Christmas party this Thursday at 5:30 at the McKinney Center. And if you have not signed up and want to sign up, please see me. And if you've signed up and haven't paid, please please try to see me after class. And we're looking forward to a wonderful evening of fellowship and food, and look forward to seeing you on Thursday night. Thank you.
Jim, if you have anyone that's coming from, needs a ride, that's coming from Round Rock, I'd be happy to pick them up.
Okay.
We also have Nancy, who needs a ride, Nancy Wilson.
We've got that taken care of.
And George?
Same way for Sun City, we can pick somebody up.
Okay. Very good. All right. Thank you.
Okay, anybody else need a ride?
Did you say Sears?
Sun City, yeah.
Julia?
Depends on where you live. Sun City.
All right,
Our Senate going on.
Julia? All right, well, today we need to do a little business. It's time to vote for a slate of officers. And Dixie is going to present the slate.
Yes, Dick Doan is out of town, so he asked me to do this, to present the slate of officers for 2019 for the second time. And what they have, the committee has recommended is for President, Ruthie Melton, Vice President, Brenda Brumvella, and returning Secretary, Barb Twyford, and Treasurer, John Ryburn. Are there any more nominations from the floor?
I move nomination closed.
Okay, if not, we'll accept the new slate of officers as, if we vote on it, once again, all in favor of this slate? Okay, so the new slate of officers, 2019.
All right. Now, it's time for a prayer before we go any further. Tom?
This is the first Sunday in Advent. This is an Advent prayer, and it's written by Reverend Jerry Chisholm, who turns out to be a minister from the Central Texas area. And I'll start with the prayer. O Emmanuel, God with us, truly in this Advent season we celebrate that you are not hidden in some faraway cloud, but you choose to be with us in the blur and the mystery of our lives. In the midst of lists and rush, you are with us as a song that echoes in our minds as the light of a candle, as a card from a friend. They are signs of your presence. We turn to you this season and pray that you would birth joy and healing, blessing and hope in us. Let something wonderful begin with us, something surprising and holy. May your hand be upon us. Let your love fill us. Let your joy overwhelm us. Let our longing for you be met on a coming holy night. Emmanuel with us once again. Amen.
Okay, we're going to open the program this morning with Alice Stevens and then Ken will go.
Good morning. I hope I've got this thing right. We are going to start a lesson on prayer. And what I would like to talk about is just an experience I had in 2011. And going through my notes, I realized I have shared this story before. Senior moment, I think in 2014. So I apologize to any of you who've heard it before, and hopefully it'll still be meaningful. I've formatted it a little differently. And I have written words, so I won't verbally, hopefully, go wandering off yonder when I'm talking to you, which can happen. Right now, our family, this past 20 years, has been going through an extremely difficult time with an adult son who has mental, alcohol, addiction problems. And I've prayed and prayed and prayed. And it's sort of like God seems silent. So it's during those times that I like to look back on when I feel God answered my prayer in just a surprising, very, very meaningful way. And I know each of you would have a story to share too. And I certainly hope you will think about doing so, because your stories enrich my faith. But I'm going to share this one with you because it's something that was so surprising to me. 8 years ago, I doubted that the following statement by Christian theologian St. Augustine could possibly be true. God loves each of us as if there were only one of us. Or, we have those scriptures, his eye is on the sparrow, so I know he's watching me, and every hair on our head is counted. Now, when you think about the billions of us, that just seems sort of far-fetched. Wonderful, but far-fetched. However, on Mother's Day weekend in 2011, I experienced a mini miracle that convinced me that this Creator, our Creator, is absolutely doing that. God does indeed love and care for each of us, as if there were only one of us. It was May in 2011, Friday afternoon before Mother's Day weekend, and I was sick, and I mean really sick. My husband and I were sitting in an oncologist's office at Texas Oncology and listening in shock as the doctor who had reviewed my CAT scan, a GI MD, had finally ordered, and the doctor was telling me I had non-Hodgkin's lymphoma and needed to start chemo treatments as soon as possible. The doctor, knowing that I was a nurse and would understand further, stated as he looked at me compassionately, in order to take chemo, you must have a central line put in, It can be either a portacath or a PICC line. I do not care which kind of line you choose. Then he added emphatically, you need to have your central line put in at the hospital on Tuesday and start chemo immediately. In this office the following day. Now, as we drove home, Jerry attempted to comfort me by repeating some of the encouraging words the oncologist had also spoken. The doctor had stated improvements had been made in chemotherapy in recent years, and there was a lessening of side effects from these medications. Also, he said I had a really good chance of recovery, even though I was 75 years old. But I was encouraged by his words. However, I was not encouraged by his words because my mind was in a whirl of fear, not only because of the surprising diagnosis of cancer, but also because I needed to have a central line put in. Ironically, my part-time job at the hospital where I currently worked as an RN had been one where I assisted the infection control nurse in her investigation of hospital-acquired infections, and more specifically, central line infections. I knew absolutely nothing about non-Hodgkin's lymphoma and had never even known or cared for anyone who had had this kind of cancer. Unrealistically, at that moment, I was more afraid of getting a systemic infection, which could be fatal, from having a central line put in than I was of having cancer. As my husband drove through the heavy Austin bumper-to-bumper 5 o'clock traffic, I silently prayed, oh Lord, I just wish I knew anyone who has been through this illness and could advise me as to what to expect, what kind of central line to have put in, and what it feels like to do chemo battle with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. There was one thing I was thankful for, and that was at last, I finally had an accurate diagnosis because I had been sick since January, seeing different doctors, getting different diagnoses, taking medications that actually made me feel worse and did not work. Now I knew why I had been feeling so nauseated and was so bloated. I looked like I was about 5 months pregnant. I had friends and relatives who had had breast cancer, colon, skin, and other kinds of cancer, but knew of absolutely no one who had ever had non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. I now felt stressed, pressured to make a decision immediately, this weekend, to whether to have a PICC line or a portacath for the administration of chemo. I was afraid of both of these central lines. A PICC line is a catheter inserted into a vein in your arm and seem less invasive than a portacath, where a catheter is inserted into a vein at a point just above the heart. The doctor had said most patients prefer the portacath, but the decision was up to me. Now, when I got home, I immediately began calling nursing friends to tell them of my diagnosis and to ask if they knew of anyone who had had non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. None of them knew of anyone who had had this form of cancer. Then I asked, what would they choose if they had to have a central line put in for the administration of chemo? Some said, get a PICC line. Others said, oh, get a portacath. Now, the portacath would be up here near the chest wall, covered by skin. The PICC line is like you have an IV tubing hanging off your arm, and you have to take care of it. Some would say get a PICC line, others said a portacath. After talking to everyone I could think of to call, I was clueless. as to which kind of central line to choose. And what on the earth? Oh, I didn't want to Google non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, because you know what? It would give me more things to worry about. So that was something I scratched off of my list. Our daughter Susan, upon learning of my diagnosis, drove all night from Port St. Joe, Florida, to be with us in Georgetown, surprising us by showing up early on Saturday morning. She lifted my spirit by her totally unexpected visit. And our son David also decided to spend Mother's Day weekend with us. In an attempt to get my mind off of my cancer diagnosis, David insisted that Susan and I go with him to the San Gabriel Park to meet his pet goose. So we drove to a nearby park where there were about 30 geese honking and swimming in the water beneath the shade of a beautiful old oak tree. We got out of the car and began walking towards the lake when one large white goose actually broke away from the flock and started swimming towards David, who was standing on the shore. The goose waddled out of the water and up to him like he was an old friend. He let David pick him up, cuddled his head next to his chin, and let all of us pet him. And you know, at that moment, even though I had just learned I had lymphoma, I felt this had to be one of my very best Mother's Day weekends ever. I felt so blessed because my husband, our son, and daughter were all being so attentive and caring. But in the back of my mind, my worry box was churning at full blast as I continued to struggle with the decision about which central line would I choose tomorrow, a decision I had to make by Monday. Now, on Sunday afternoon, Troy, a man who occasionally did carpentry work for my husband, came to our house to start construction on a workshop. Jerry wanted built inside of a storage building in the back of our property. We are both pack rats, so when we moved, he had to build a 3-car storage building for all of our junk stuff. Troy had a full-time job during the week and could only do side jobs such as this on weekends. However, I was surprised he would leave his wife and children and family on Mother's Day and show up at our house to do this job. Jerry walked Troy out to the storage building to explain the construction he needed, while Susan, David, and I sat in the den trying to talk about anything but cancer. In a few minutes, David got very sick and tired of listening to our girl talk and excused himself, saying, "Mom, I'm going to go check on Troy to see if he needs any help." In just a few minutes, David came running back into the den, really excited, and exclaimed, "Mom, you're not going to believe this. I told Troy about your diagnosis, and Troy said he has the same kind of cancer that you have. He just completed his chemo about 6 months ago and is now in remission. He said he really would like to talk to you about what he experienced." And David was right. I did not believe him. I was astounded by this news and felt it could not possibly be true. So I said, "David, that is not possible. He probably just did not understand my diagnosis and the medical terminology for this kind of cancer." My judgmental thinking kicked in. You know, he's just probably high school educated, just a construction worker. He just couldn't possibly have understood my diagnosis. So I told David, it is kind of him to want to talk to me. However, I am certain Troy must have some other sort of cancer. "No, Mom. He said he had non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. But please tell him to come in and we can at least talk, and he has to be burning up out there in the air-conditioned storage building. We could at least offer him some water and let him cool off." In a few minutes, Troy, who is a very large, heavy-set man, about 45 years old, ambled into our den and said in his low country drawl, "Ms. Stevens, I am sorry about your diagnosis, but I want you to know it's going to be okay. You are going to be okay. He sat down in an armchair and for the next hour shared with us, using correct medical terminology, how he had been diagnosed and treated for non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. He explained how he felt prior to getting this illness diagnosed. He described the back pain, the nausea, the bloating I was feeling at that exact moment, and then stated with a big smile how all of these symptoms improved as the chemo treatments progressed. And yes, he did experience some side effects from the chemo, but somehow he managed to continue his work supervising construction sites in Sun City, even while he was receiving chemotherapy every 3 weeks. I was astounded as I listened, grasping every word he was saying like a lifeline. Then I had to ask the question I'd been struggling with. Okay, how do they administer the chemo? I have been told I need to get a portacath or a PICC line, and I am quite honestly afraid of getting an infection. From either of them. He grinned at me, unbuttoned his shirt at the top and showed me his upper left chest wall, where hidden beneath the surface of the skin was a barely perceptible bubble about the size of a quarter. Get a portacath. See, I still have mine. I've had mine for a year. You can shower, you can swim, and I just have to have it flushed with heparin every month. The oncologist wants me to keep it a while longer, just in case they have to resume the chemo. I am in remission now from lymphoma, but have to be checked every few months. Ms. Stevens, you are going to feel soon much better after you start the chemo. As I said before, it is all going to be okay. I sat on the couch staring at Troy. Tears were filling my eyes. I was totally unable to believe that this man had miraculously shown up on the very afternoon when I was struggling with fear over my recent diagnosis and the need to make a decision as to how to have chemo administered the next day. Attempting not to cry, I said, Troy, God had to send you here. I cannot believe you accidentally showed up today to educate me, reassure me, and answer my questions about non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. He looked at me and grinned. Yeah, Miss Stevens, I got this lymphoma over a year ago, just so I'd be prepared to help you down the road. And then Troy laughed, grabbed a bottle of water, and went back to work in our storage building. And so I was healed that afternoon. I was not healed of lymphoma, but healed of my fears of lymphoma, fears of the central line and the chemotherapy. I was absolutely amazed how God had answered my prayer to meet someone who had had non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. I felt reassured that God was in control and had orchestrated the presence of this earthly angel to come see me. From that moment on, I felt the overwhelming peace of God's presence and knew whatever the outcome of my cancer treatment, indeed I was in God's hands and would be okay. I had my portacath put in the following Monday, and then began my chemo treatments the next day. And Troy was right. After starting the chemo treatments, my back pain, nausea, bloating, all of the symptoms began to diminish. 6 months later, a CAT scan showed me to be in remission from lymphoma. And recent CAT scans for me have been good, too. And I've been discharged from Texas Oncology. Troy had his portacath removed shortly after our visit and is still in remission. And I have still yet to meet anyone else who's had non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. I I am truly convinced St. Augustine's statement is absolutely true. That God looks after each of us as if there is only one of us. And the scripture's true also. His eye is on the sparrow. And I know he's watching me and thee. Thank you.
Alice, thank you. Alice came to me recently and indicated that she had had this experience that she has just narrated, and she wanted to share it with the class. And I keep reminding myself that this is contemporary forum, that anyone in the class who wants to stand and do as Alice did is certainly welcome to. All of you have spiritual, Christian experiences all the time. And they would be very meaningful to the class if you shared them. So Alice and I both want to encourage you to think about that. Think back in your life where you felt that God was moving in your life, and consider sharing those with the class. It could be similar to what she just did, or it could be something a little bit more casual. And so think about that, and you're certainly welcome to do that. I'm wondering, now that we have listened to Alice, if any of you have comments or questions of her. Any thoughts at all on her experience? Now, she attributes what happened there, particularly with this gentleman who worked with them, she attributes this to God, that God intervened and helped her in this way. I would just simply like to say that when we talk about prayer in that manner, particularly when we're dealing with illness, and particularly something so serious as what you had, that your feelings are personal. I guess that's what I want to say. Most of us in here have already decided on how we feel about such matters. And if it works for you, then I would encourage you to keep those feelings. That doesn't mean that you can't consider, as an example, Alice's conclusion that her healing was very much aided by this gentleman who came to the house to work for Jerry, and she attributed his coming to God. She felt that God was involved there, directly involved there. Others of you may have other explanations, and so that's what I'm saying. There would be different ways of looking at this. Alice's version or explanation certainly works for her, and it's beautiful and meaningful. But like I said, I urge you to think about this yourself. Take care of your salvation, as I have often urged you. Yes, Ann, Dr. Ann.
Well, I was just going to say that I would definitely affirm Alice and her understanding of it, of what happened. I think a lot of times in synchronicities, or like in this case almost, with Troy coming over on Mother's Day, leaving his family, all of Alice's family being present, that these are ways in which that God does move in our lives, and we so oftentimes miss them because we just dismiss it as some coincidence or something else that happened. But I would affirm that. I also would affirm what you said about people taking very personally the experiences in their own life and open and communicate with God about it. I think we'll find that God's oftentimes around us and we're just unaware.
Yes, thank you so much. And Dr. Paula?
I think I can speak loud enough that you can hear me.
No, we don't want you to do that.
I would concur with Dr. Ann, because as Alice, you were speaking, scriptures just kept flashing in front of me. And what I believe is that the Bible in its entirety is true. It's not a cafeteria where you pick and choose which of the scriptures happen to work for you, because I don't think that's the way God works. He gave us this. And I was reading, I guess last week, it was in Psalms, and it talked about God being with you. And in Psalms 139, it says, no matter where you go, you can't escape him. If you go to the depths of hell, he'll be there. And I was like, oh, really? And so when you talk about that, and then Jeremiah 29:11 came, that says, I know the plans I have for you. They are not plans to harm you, but to help you, to give you hope, to give you a future. And so when you think of those scriptures, that he's with you, he knows your concerns. He says, I knew you when you were being knitted together in your mother's womb. I knew you, and I knew what would come for you. And so when Troy made the joke and said, I got cancer so I could come and tell you so that you would feel better. He sends people into our lives for a reason, a season, or a lifetime. And I think in your case, there was a reason. And he said, I'm not going to harm you. I'm going to help you. And so he sent someone. When he's physically not present, he works through us if we make ourselves available. And so your story reminds me of something that I want to talk about. I've been invited to teach a class, and I want to explain it more fully then. But you're right on. You're right on.
Yes,
The scripture will support you every step of the way.
Thank you for that. I have invited Paula to teach the class sometimes in January, February, and I'm delighted to tell you that she has accepted this. And I also want to share with you an invitation for you to do likewise. We have Julie, and we have Ann, and we have Paula, and now we have Alice, people who are willing to do this, and I think it's a wonderful thing for the members of the class to teach the class. I simply want to conclude this. I had a lesson prepared, by the way, and I was going to share with you and I will later, a wonderful essay on the 23rd Psalm. And I was thinking of Ann, of course, because I have heard her repeat it by heart so many times. But by Rabbi Harold Kushner, and he's written a 4.5-page essay on his interpretation on the 23rd Psalm. And so I think it relates, and I will do that after Christmas, because next week I want to have a lesson on Christmas. But I will just simply observe this. What I hear you saying today very much is that we have a very personal God. He is not a God who created the world and just left, as the deists believe, to let natural laws and so on take their ways. Ours is a personal God, and you can connect with Him through prayer. And I urge you to do that, to enrich your prayer life and to be with God as closely as you can. Well, Alice, thank you for your lesson and your personal experience. It was a blessing, I'm sure, to all of us. So I think we owe her an applause, right? Ken? Yes.
I want to add my thank you also, Alice, for that wonderful witness. I want to say to the class, every line is filled. I've got to get a new bus, another bus. This thing about indulgence is it works. So, thank you very much.
You know, I continually get insight on how Joe Wilson was the bishop of the Central Conference for, I don't know, almost 10 years. The comment that I have heard is that he was known as the pastor's bishop, which is to say he worked with pastors and they appreciated that. But the more I hear him talk and share his little thoughts, especially about that list in this class, I'm thinking to myself, the pastors in the Central Conference, they must have had a very interesting time. This fellow was the bishop. Have a wonderful week.